Chapter 7 Overview, Classical Area Variations, Africa and the Americas, 500 BCE to 1200 CE. Main idea. During the classical period, several African and American civilizations laid the foundation for great empires to come. So relevance. This chapter is about the earliest societies in Africa and the Americas. Contemporary societies in these two continents trace their roots back to this time, from Maya culture in modern-day Mexico to developing trade networks in West Africa. These cultures are the roots of the modern world. In both places today, we have issues arising from the interaction between native cultures and those descended from European settlers and rulers. Here's a picture of a protest of the Zapatista Army of the National Liberation, which was a protest of Mayan descendants against the Mexican government in recent years. Setting the stage, remember in Chapter 3, we learned about the first 6 civilizations. This chapter is going to pick up where we left off in Africa and the Americas, with successors of, here in Africa, the Nile Valley civilizations. If you remember, there was Egypt, and down here there was Nubia. The Norte Chico in the Andes mountain region of South America. And you also learned about the Olmec society, which is in present-day Mexico area that we call Mesoamerica. You'll also learn about new civilizations that occurred in West and Southern Africa and in North America. The first red heading is about the African Northeast. Northeast African civilizations developed in unique ways due to their geographic and political connections with Eurasia. First, Meroe, continuing a Nile Valley civilization. During the height of the Egyptian civilization, there was a rival state to the south along the Nile River called Nubia. By the 4th century BCE, this society was centered around a city called Meroe, and on this map it is in the green section here, right in the corner. This society was characterized by advanced ironwork and wealth. Here's a picture of a gold bracelet from that civilization, and had trade up the Nile River with the Roman Empire, which made it a significant political and economic force for that part of Africa. It declined due to deforestation and conquest by the other society this section focuses on, Axum. This was centered to the east of Meroe in what is now Ethiopia. So on the map, it's over here in the red. It was known by the Romans as the third great empire in the world, after Rome and Persia. It had important trade relationships on the Red Sea region here, which eventually would link it with the Mediterranean region. And its most important influence was that it was a Christian kingdom in Africa. The emperor of Axum adopted Christianity as the state religion at about the same time as Constantine did in Rome, and to this day Ethiopia has a substantial Christian population. In addition to religious conversion, Axum embarked on a program of military expansion and made it into present-day Saudi Arabia, in the Arabian Peninsula, and just about into Mecca by the 4th to 6th centuries CE. But it declined shortly after that. That was a short-lived empire, mostly due to environmental changes and the rise of Islamic states in this Arabian region in the 7th century. So Axum in northeastern Africa was very important for economic, cultural, and political reasons. Next, the book heads over west to the Niger River region. Cities along the Niger River in West Africa developed a sophisticated trade network circa 300 BCE to 900 CE. These were similar to the Indus Valley civilizations you learned about in Chapter 3, in that they were cities that did not seem to have a centralized state structure. The key importance of these cities is their development of metalworking technology and extensive trade both along the Niger River and also to the north and the south. This purple section of this map shows the location of these Niger River societies. Here is the Niger River right here. This trade relationship laid the foundation for future West African societies such as Ghana, Mali, and Songhay, which will be discussed in future chapters. The next section is south of the equator, the world of Bantu Africa. For several centuries after 100 CE, a slow migration of Bantu-speaking peoples had significant cultural and environmental impact. Culturally, this migration was very gradual as Bantu speakers sought new farm and pasture land. An important effect was the diffusion of these Bantu languages throughout southern Africa. On this map, these purple arrows represent the diffusion of the Bantu civilization throughout the southern portion of Africa. These migrants, in addition to diffusing their language, brought ironworking technology, which affected the environment as well as their living standards. And as they moved, they adapted their food production to match local conditions. Politically, Bantu speakers used a wide variety of systems, some more centralized than others. Their religious traditions emphasize ancestor and nature worship, and the notion of continuous revelation, which is the idea that information from the next world is constantly available to us. These traditions influenced African culture for centuries and still do to this day. Next, the book heads over to the Americas, starting with a region called Mesoamerica. Early Mesoamerican civilizations, while extremely diverse, developed extensive interactions that loosely unified them culturally and economically. The first and probably most famous from this region is the Maya. Just so you know, this term Mesoamerica refers to a region from present-day Mexico to northern Central America, which is just about covered on this map. And your book will use this term, Mesoamerica, which means Middle America, to refer to this geographic section. It's important to remember that these American cultures that we'll be learning about here developed without ironworking technology or domesticated animals, which in Afro-Eurasia were central to the development of civilizations. So classical Maya civilization from about 250 to 900 CE was significant for a number of reasons. Most important was the development of a sophisticated system of writing and mathematical reasoning, which led to impressive technology such as monumental architecture and environmental transformation for agriculture. Another significant development was the stunningly sudden collapse of the state by about 900 CE for reasons that are mysterious to us. But the Maya, when they survived, established cultural and economic systems that would influence the Mesoamerican region for centuries. One of those was Teotihuacan, the greatest city in the Americas at the time. This is one of the 6 largest cities in the world at that point, with an influence far wider than its geographic boundaries. Here is Teotihuacan, and this yellow section here represents what the map calls the sphere of influence of Teotihuacan, and these arrows are showing that its influence spread even farther. Teotihuacan was a large, complex city with social distinctions as the basis for political rule. Its most important impact was, again, the center of a major trade network. The evidence that shows there were foreigners in the city demonstrates that significance. And together with the Maya civilization, which is shown on this map here in green, this city was the center of Mesoamerican culture in the classical period. The other significant region is the Andes mountain region in what is now Peru in South America. During the classical era, the Andes Mountains provided a natural environment that sustained cultures predating the Incas. There's quite a few mentioned on this map here. Your book will focus on Chavin and Moche. First, Chavin. This was a temple complex that was more of a city than a centralized state or empire. Its influence was primarily religious and spread around the Andes region, which demonstrates the extent of communication in the area. Chavin's religion is focused on animism, which is the belief that animals are part of the spirit world. And this is a jaguar image from an old temple in Chavin. Next, Moche. This was one of the major states of South America and a precursor of the Inca civilization. They sustained themselves with complex irrigation systems that guided runoff from the Andes. They seem to have been governed by warrior priests, demonstrating the cultural importance of religion in this early state. This is a tomb complex of one of the religious leaders of Moche from about 300 CE. This civilization was gone by the 8th century CE. Others followed, but none as great as Moche until the Incas, who will be covered in a later chapter. Finally, North America in the classical era. During the classical era, North America was home to agricultural societies that did not develop as urban centers or centralized states, but still had significant economic impact on the region. First, the ancestral Pueblo Society. This society in what is now the American Southwest developed as an agricultural community in which residents lived in underground villages linked together by extensive trade networks. Later, they moved above ground into pueblos, like the one pictured here, and the most famous of these was located in what is now known as Chaco Canyon from about 860 to 1130 CE. They did have great advancements in technology, but this did not prevent the collapse of the society by 1200 and the abandonment of these pueblos. And the last society is the mound builders of the eastern woodlands in North America. There was an independent agricultural revolution centered on the Mississippi River, and this gave rise to an urban center called Cahokia around 900 to 1250 CE, pictured on this map here in orange. Based on maize that was obtained indirectly from Mexico, this society had a hierarchical structure monumental architecture, and a strong military. Studies of this society demonstrate the persistence of these characteristics of early civilizations, which seem to pop up whenever civilization does. These patterns throughout the world would continue in more complex combinations throughout world history. Now the 10-second spice review. Classical era societies in Africa and the Americas have many similarities with those in Eurasia, such as hierarchical social structures, complex urban centers, and centralized states. New technologies affected the environment, and some maintained traditional religions, while others adopted new ones. These civilizations developed trade connections that helped to spread cultural, political, and religious beliefs. Now let's look at a visual overview. There's a lot going on in this chapter, so just think about it as Africa in 3 sections: the northeast, the west, and the south. In the northeast, we have Meroe, which was the successor to Nubia, and we have the Christian kingdom of Axum. Over in West Africa, we have the cities along the Niger River, and in southern Africa, we have the spread of the Bantu-speaking peoples. Then over in the Americas, in Mesoamerica, which is now Mexico and Central America, we have the Maya civilization and the city of Teotihuacan. In the Andes mountain region, what is now the western portion of South America, we have the religious society of Chavin and the more centralized state of Moche. And then in North America, we have the Chaco Canyon Pueblo people and the trade network centered around Cahokia. That's your Chapter 7 overview. Happy reading!
Modi hawre yerse yeter sabu yer koi yeter sabu yer koi yeter sabu yer koi